anything to say?
Oh, I was just waiting on questions.
No. We say a few words first, then we...
Okay, this is Wanakok Nuksika Stomach. I'd like to welcome you guys out today. Very historic day for Siksika. I'd like to, we consider the Prime Minister, the office as the head chief of Canada, and I'm the current head chief of Siksika. So I told the Prime Minister that when he's invited guests to Siksika, we don't worry about politics. It's chief to chief, it's nation to nation, as it was meant to be at the Blackfoot, signing of the Blackfoot Treaty of 1877. So welcome, thank you.
Okay, hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. I'm happy to be here with Minister Miller and Minister Boissonneau. I want to I start by thanking Chief Ouray Crowfoot and everyone welcoming us here today at Siksika Nation. C'est important pour moi d'être ici aujourd'hui pour la cérémonie et pour finaliser officiellement ce règlement de revendication historique. We also had a productive meeting with Chief and Council to talk about the priorities and all the work that we continue to do together. Today, we officialized a $1.3 billion historical claims settlement with Siksika Nation, one of the largest of its kind ever concluded in this country. This settlement focuses on past wrongs dating back to 1910, when the Government of Canada wrongfully took almost half of Siksika Nation's land. This included their most productive agricultural and mineral-rich lands. Today's announcement also addresses long-standing claims related to the Bow River Irrigation District, the Canadian Pacific Railway claim, and other land-based historical grievances. I want to recognize the tireless advocacy and leadership of the community here in Siksika Nation. You've fought for over 60 years. I commend your courage and determination, and our government is committed to work with you in partnership to address injustices and build a better future together. Le règlement de 1,3 milliard de dollars va permettre à la communauté d'investir dans leurs priorités comme l'infrastructure, l'éducation et le soutien pour les aînés. Les gens ici vont pouvoir avoir de nouvelles possibilités économiques, sociales et culturelles. I know that Chief Crowfoot has said that the settlement can support Siksika in developing true financial sovereignty. This is an opportunity to reclaim and self-determine your own destiny. Our government, of course, will continue to be here as friends and partners to advance the work we need to do and make sure no one gets left behind. Thank you very much. Mark.
Good afternoon. Today was a day to take a step forward in a different way than we've behaved in the past. The Prime Minister mentioned it, Ouray, Chief Crowfoot mentioned it. This is stuff that's been going on for 60 years. Righting a wrong that shouldn't have happened in the first place, that goes all the way back to 1910. So we're talking over 112 years. This isn't lost on anyone, especially the Siksika people who've fought so long for this day. The settlement, it's one of the largest in Canadian history, but it isn't the end of the story, nor does it right absolutely all the wrongs that occurred. This is about a relationship, a one-based in treaty that was signed close to, in 1877, and swiftly violated thereafter by Canada. Today's a new day. It's a time to move on in respect and friendship, and really an opportunity to celebrate something with the community, particularly with all the work that remains in lifting up one of the most beautiful people and beautiful parts of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have a maximum of 20 minutes for questions from media. That's one question, one follow-up per reporter. Ça va être un maximum de 20 minutes pour des questions des médias, avec une question de suivi par journaliste. On va commencer avec la première question. We can start with the first question.
Hi, Dylan Shore with Post Media. You've spoken a lot today about how this is, a step. Obviously, it's a big day, but I'm looking for answers from both the Prime Minister and the Chief. Building this relationship, building this nation to nation, what does that look like from each of your sides moving forward? How do we carry this momentum forward?
Well, I think, first of all, understanding that today is about recognizing terrible injustice of the past, where almost half of Siksika land was taken from them shortly after having been promised a partnership and a relationship that would be very, very different. We needed to recognize that this allows us now to move forward on solider footing, having undone a little bit of the broken trust of many years, of recognizing the harm that we did generations ago, but understanding as well that as large as the settlement is, it can't undo the loss, the trauma, the intergenerational impacts of what was done by Canada. So in our conversation, as I sat down with Chief and Council just now, was about the next steps around policing, around elders, around language, around financial independence, around a path to enable Siksika Nation to fully achieve its path forward. And that is something that today is just a mile marker along the road on, an important one, because we've recognized the mistakes of the past. But we have a lot of work to do, and I'm looking very much forward to doing that alongside this Chief and Council and future challenges that we may face. Chief?
Thank you. That's a good question. Today is not about, in my opinion, reconciliation. You're not going to make it right. But at the same time, nothing that could be done today is going to redo what was, or undo what was done in the past. So we can't, even though we got to learn from that's happened along the way. So now is a new day. We start the day, we build relationships, and we move forward. So I'm very confident that we can build these nation-to-nation relationships between us and Canada. And it's about making these mutual beneficial agreements and having milestones and knocking those off. And it's about renewing that treaty. You know, the treaty took place 145 years ago. A lot of the promises in those treaties were broken. But now it's about having that relationship, rebuilding that relationship, rebuilding that understanding. And again, we can't focus on all that stuff that cannot be undone. We can learn from all that stuff and move forward. So I'm not saying we forget it. We learn from that stuff and we say, okay, Canada, how can we move forward? So this team, me and my council, we're committed to moving forward as Siksika. We're committed to moving forward with Canada. And we can, there's a lot of initiatives that we have going on right now that for the betterment of Siksika. And Siksika is one of the largest First Nations in Canada. And so as we move forward as a First Nation, we make Alberta better. And as Alberta becomes better, Canada becomes better. So it's not, we're not on an island. We're all Albertans together, we're all Canadians together. So we gotta work together to build a stronger relationship for Siksika and for Alberta and for Canada. So thank you.
Follow up, Dylan?
Yeah, so I'm going to double barrel a question here for the chief as well. What, you know, you spoke about initiatives and projects. I guess what might that look like on the ground? Obviously $1.3 billion is a good chunk of change. What might that look like? And then earlier today you said that you're not quite sure if the Prime Minister is a true friend yet. What do you need to see from him and his government to be able to, you know, give him and give the government of Canada that title?
Well, you know, you might have 5,000 Facebook friends, but then they're not your friends. So, you know, I have about 3 friends that I consider close friends. So I was just making that statement. This is the first time I've ever met the Prime Minister. I've actually met Mark Millen. I've worked with Mark Millen. I think the relationship we've had, the understanding we've had, everything that he told me he was going to do so far, he's done it. So I will say, from my relationship with Minister Miller, he's a friend for Siksika. He's an ally for Siksika. He's helped us push forward this far. And you know, there's a lot of initiatives we're working on. Like I said, we're the second largest First Nation from a land perspective, yet we don't have policing on the reserve. So we're working to get our policing back. We're working through the residential school searches and mental health and there's a lot of initiatives that, you know, people with disabilities, that's a big discrimination You know, if you're in Alberta, if you're from Siksika, you have to move off the reserve to get benefits no other Albertan has to do. So it's those kind of inequities we're looking to rectify. We're not looking for anything other than equitable treatment that any other Albertan, any other Canadian would receive elsewhere. So, you know, again, in the 1.3 billion, there's going to be a lot of that money is not going to stay on Siksika. As we build stuff, as we build infrastructure, that economic boost is going to go into Alberta. That economic boost is going to go into the economy. So if anybody understands how multipliers work, you know, the restaurants in the surrounding communities are going to be filled up. The hotels are going to be filled up. This money is not going to stay just on Siksika. It's going to benefit all of Alberta. And as it benefits all of Alberta, it's going to benefit all of Canada. So there's a lot of mutual relationships and a lot of mutual beneficials that can come out of the money. It's not about the money. I've always said this from day one. I'm a finance guy by trade. It's not about the money. It's about the opportunities that can come from the money. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. And again, all this money that comes in, a lot of it's going to go out. And where's it going to go out to? It's going to go to Calgary. It's going to go to Lethbridge. It's going to go all over southern Alberta, all over Canada. We have nation members all over Canada and the United States. So it's going to benefit a lot of people, not just going to benefit Siksika. But again, how can we work on those relationships to I can call the Prime Minister a friend? I don't call him an enemy. I told him while he was at Siksika, he was welcome at Siksika. All politics aside, it's not about parties when you're meeting with Chief and Council. The Chief of Canada is meeting with the Chief of Siksika. That's the end of the story.
Next question. Oh.
Stephanie Thomas, CTV Calgary. Open question. This is the first large landmark decision. Can we expect to see more decisions like this, and what would Canada look like?
This obviously took an awful lot of work by a whole bunch of people. Minister Miller finished it off, and Minister Bennett had led on it before. The number of negotiators and public servants on our side, the number of hardworking folks on the Siksika side, making sure that this would move forward, was something that people really leaned in on. I will say that what really began to unlock it was when Canadians elected a government in 2015 that made reconciliation with Indigenous peoples a priority. Canadians told us very clearly that they wanted to see Canada move forward on fixing the broken relationship with Indigenous peoples across this country. And we took that seriously, and that has led to this place. But while we've been working on this one, we've been working on other communities across the country. We've been building distinctions-based tables with the Inuit. We've been moving forward on child and family services legislation to keep Indigenous kids in their communities when they're at risk, that have actually articulated in Saskatchewan and other parts of the country. There are lots more things to do, but because it is such a challenging responsibility, and because it is so complex, it is important as well to take time when we do reach an important milestone like this agreement to pause and say, this is a good day. This is a good day for Siksika, but it's a good day for Canada as well, because we are recognizing terrible mistakes of the past, working to make them right, and working, most importantly, to build a better future for everyone.
And this follow-up is for you, Mr. Prime Minister. So following the decision to grant BC an exemptions for small drug possession, what conversations are you having with the City of Edmonton about this?
The move we made in regards to BC was something that we've been working on with British Columbia for quite a while now. Because we all know that the opioid epidemic has affected communities right across the country, affected families who never thought they might be affected by the tragedy of opioids, overdoses and epidemics, and yet they are. So we've, from the very beginning, put at the center of our approach a data-based, a science-based approach to move drug addictions out of the criminal system and into the health system. But you can't talk about moving into the health system if you're not actually working with those who deliver health care. So as we looked at moving forward with BC, we talked very, very carefully with them about what wraparound supports would be there on this important step. How do you make sure the frontline workers are tooled up to support this change? How do you make sure that the healthcare system is ready? How do you make sure police officers and the justice system is ready for this change? How do you make sure that organized crime doesn't make a windfall off of this change? These are all questions we worked on very, very closely with BC, with the City of Vancouver, to have good answers for as we move forward in this important way. And yes, we've heard Edmonton and Toronto are very interested in moving forward as well. And we're going to sit down with them, but it'll be challenging to do, to be entirely honest, without some support from provincial governments that are obviously important in charge of policing and healthcare. But if one wants to take a science-based approach, a health-based approach to the opioid epidemic that we're facing, then this is the kind of thing that people need to take seriously.
Prochaine question, Charlotte.
Bonjour, Charlotte Dumoulin de Radio-Canada. Je change un peu de sujet, moi aussi. Des avions chinois narguent des pilotes canadiens en Asie-Pacifique en volant quelques mètres seulement au-dessus d'eux. Considérez-vous ce genre de pratique comme un acte d'agression? Est-ce que vous avez eu des discussions avec des hauts dirigeants chinois?
Nous sommes très préoccupés par cette situation. Évidemment, le Canada est en train de jouer un rôle important dans le Pacifique, à interdire et à faire partie d'un travail international pour s'assurer que les sanctions appliquées à la Corée du Nord soient respectées et soient suivies. Et donc, on a une présence militaire dans le nord du Pacifique. Que la Chine ait eu ce comportement nous préoccupe énormément et on va certainement avoir des suivis avec nos homologues chinois.
Suivi.
Merci. Votre ancien ministre des Finances, Bill Morneau, a eu des mots durs à l'endroit de votre gouvernement dans un discours à Toronto hier soir, en disant notamment que votre gouvernement ne se préoccupe pas assez de la croissance économique. Est-ce que vous acceptez ces critiques?
En 2015, on s'est fait élire avec la promesse d'investir dans la classe moyenne pour créer la croissance économique. Et c'est exactement ce qu'on a fait. On a réduit les impôts pour la classe moyenne en les augmentant pour les mieux nantis. On a amené une allocation canadienne aux enfants qui a sorti des centaines de milliers d'enfants de la pauvreté. Et Bill Morneau faisait partie importante de cette équipe-là. Mais là, quand la pandémie a frappé, il a fallu être là pour nos entreprises. Il a fallu être là pour les Canadiens vulnérables. Il a fallu être là pour soutenir l'économie. Et tout ce qu'on a fait a amené une reprise économique plus forte que beaucoup d'autres de nos pays pairs à cause des investissements qu'on avait faits pour appuyer les gens, pour donner confiance aux Canadiens qu'on allait pouvoir passer à travers ensemble. Et là, avec les hausses du coût de la vie, on continue d'être là pour investir dans les citoyens parce qu'on sait que la meilleure façon d'assurer une économie en santé et croissante, c'est de s'assurer que les Canadiens puissent contribuer, puissent bien vivre et atteindre leur potentiel.
Next question, Adam.
Adam McVicker with Global News in Calgary. My first question, $1.3 billion, how was that number reached, Prime Minister?
It is extremely difficult to quantify the exact loss that if you go back to 1910, to the breaking of treaties signed only a few decades before, by taking away almost half of the territory granted to Siksika Nation. You think of all the growth that could have happened, all the opportunities they would have had. That's why we sat down in very careful and robust negotiations to figure out what would be the right amount to move forward on, to make sure that it was recognizing the terrible harms that Canada caused, the loss of opportunity, the loss of potential, but also make sure that we're able to continue to move forward responsibly. But I'm happy to turn over to Minister Miller, who was certainly deeply involved in these negotiations. Mark?
Yeah, and it isn't an easy question to answer, but an important one. It is often the product of lengthy negotiation and dispute. And let's situate this. This isn't a discussion about ceded or unceded land. This is land that was set aside and then taken away unjustly. There are many claims that are interrelated, but when we go to quantify that type of loss, to the extent that money can replace the loss of land, it becomes a discussion over the unimproved value of the land over the course of time, and then becomes a process of negotiation with the negotiation teams, including chief and council, and then put out through a very long ratification community process that can be quite difficult on the community itself. But obviously, there's some actuarial basis to it. There's a measuring basis to it, but there's also a negotiation basis to it. So finally, it becomes acceptable to the community in question.
I'm going to add a little bit on that. You know what? There's a lot of, this was oil-rich lands. But it's not about the lands. If I took your son at 2 years old and bring him back at 25, what value can you put on that? It's gone. So 1.3 is a bargain. Just remember that. And it's not, it was about the land. You talk about sheer land value, you talk about mineral value, you talk about oil value, and you talk about loss of ceremonial items and ceremonial grounds we will never get back. It's all of those, and you talk about 112 years. If this was a group of Alberta ranchers, it had been settled in 5. Thank you.
Thank you. I got one more question for you, Prime Minister, on a different topic here. There have been reports that Chinese jets have buzzed and flown within 20 to 150 feet of a Canadian aircraft on a UN mission. The military has called this unsafe and unprofessional. I guess, how serious is this, and is it part of an escalation by China with this?
We obviously take this situation very seriously. Canada is an active part of an important mission in the North Pacific to ensure that the sanctions applied to North Korea are properly enforced. And the fact that China would have chosen to do this is extremely troubling. So we will be bringing it up directly with Chinese officials and counterparts and ensuring that this doesn't continue to be part of an escalatory pattern.
Next question.
Okay, Mr. Prime Minister, Siksika. Hello, my name is Carly Wieselchild, and I work for Siksika Media for the local newspaper. And it's so wonderful having you here today to visit our traditional Blackfoot territory. It's Indigenous History Month, and also we are the second largest reserve here in Canada. So my question for you is, how do you feel personally, as our Prime Minister, to work with Siksika Nation to finalize this historical settlement during your tenure?
My biggest regret today is that I didn't bring one of my kids along to be part of this. You know, when I was a kid, my father, when he was Prime Minister, brought me to a lot of incredible Indigenous communities to meet with leaders, to talk about partnerships, talk about the way forward. And it always impacted on me what he was doing and the relationships that he was building back then. Of course, from today, we look back at what was happening in the 70s and early 80s, and we know how inadequate it was. But to be able right now to reach not just back to the 70s to fix things that were done then, or to complete things that were started then, but to reach back to try and live up to a treaty signed in 1877, a treaty that was broken in 1910, and say, we were wrong. Canada was wrong in not respecting the treaties that we signed, the agreements, the partnerships that we laid out. And we own that. And as the chief says, money can't fix that. But it is a recognition that we were wrong, and it gives us a path now to move forward. And there's lots of things that we are looking forward to working with the Siksika Nation on, whether it's elders, whether it's policing, whether it's whatever priorities they bring forward, because they are the ones who get to choose. They are the ones who get to lead. They are the ones who get to shape the future of their community, and Canada as is right, will be part of it. But this month of June, which is Indigenous Heritage Month, it's important to underline that what's happening here today isn't just about the Government of Canada and Siksika Nation. This is about non-Indigenous Canadians from coast to coast to coast that have to understand that their country and their history includes and is defined by Siksika Nation and Siksika history. That this is something that we need to move forward on together. Because at the same time as residential schools, we're teaching or trying to teach Indigenous kids that there was no value in their language and their culture and identity. Every other school in Canada was teaching non-Indigenous kids that there was no value in Indigenous languages, culture, or history. So the work we have to do doesn't just involve a government and a nation. It involves every single Canadian. And being able to be here today to represent all Canadians as we take this important step forward that will hopefully be something that people look back on positively decades from now, a century from now, as a moment where things started to change for real. Well, that is a deep privilege. Mon plus grand regret aujourd'hui, c'est que j'ai pas pu amener un de mes enfants pour venir voir cette annonce aujourd'hui, pour faire partie de cette célébration. Parce que je me souviens très bien d'avoir été avec mon père dans des visites comme ça, un peu partout au pays, où j'ai vu l'importance du travail qu'on fait ensemble, gouvernement et peuple autochtone. Mais en même temps, ce qu'on est en train de faire ici, c'est pas juste une question de faire des arrangements d'il y a quelques années, c'est de reconnaître qu'il y a presque 100 ans, le Canada a fait une erreur monumentale, a manqué de respect, a brisé les liens de confiance avec la nation Siksika. Et aujourd'hui, on reconnaît ça, on essaye de rebâtir cette relation de confiance et on s'engage à continuer pour bâtir un monde meilleur ensemble, dans tout respect, avec le leadership de cette communauté à l'avant-plan de toutes les décisions qu'ils vont vouloir prendre.
Follow-up question.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for taking the time to answer my questions.
Thank you.
And my follow-up question is for Chief Ouray. This is definitely a huge step forward in a positive direction, and it's a historical day for us, for Siksika, for the people. So what message do you have for our nation members for today?
We've been talking about initiatives and change, and to get real change, you have to be change. And, you know, I think that's one of the things that this team has worked on, my council team, is being the change. You know, not sitting around talking about it, but showing results. And a lot of these, it wasn't just residential school, but a lot of the things that happened in residential school, they made our people ashamed to be First Nation, ashamed to speak the language, ashamed of where they're from. And that's some of the things that we're trying to show our people. And all these different, there's a lot of things going on. You know, we just brought Chief Crowfoot's regalia back. There's a lot of items that we're bringing back. We're putting up our signage in Blackfoot around the reserve. You know, we're working on a lot of different initiatives. We want our people to be proud of who they are. When they hold their head up, they want them to say, I'm from Siksika. And so, you know, but to make real change, you have to be the change. And that's what I think our team here at the Siksika Council, we're being the change. You know, and so, and that's the relationships that we're working with Canada as well as the provincial government, is to work on more initiatives to be the change. It's easy to talk all these things of what you're going to do as a politician, but we want to be able to, every nation member should be able to look around and see a visible difference at Siksika. And that's what we want. We want to see less boarded up homes. We want to see less garbage on the road. We want our people to be proud of our community. And that was the main thing about coming down here. You know, we could have easily just signed it in there. But it was significant that it took place at the same place that 145 years ago, a lot of our ancestors were down here and negotiating that treaty, the Blackfoot Treaty of 1877. So it's renewing that treaty. We had a pipe ceremony today. And then that pipe ceremony is more important than that signing. And it's those promises that we make from Siksika to the Canada, a nation-to-nation agreement to work forward to be that change. And those are the things I look forward to as we continue this relationship, continue this partnership. And we want our people to see that. That's why we want to start having more and more and more of these events so our people can walk around and be proud to be from Siksika. And other First Nations will say, boy, look what Siksika's doing. And I want them to be proud of whatever First Nation they're from. I want them to be proud. We got to in the government of Canada, it did have systemic racist propaganda strategies. The whole residential school was to kill the Indian and save the child, kill the Indian. They made our ways outlawed. You know, to have these, that's why these bundles are in England and these bundles are in Germany and these sacred items are all over, spread all over. Now these items are coming back. Now these items are coming back. And we talk about a 1.3 billion, again, that's a bargain deal. And it's not about the money, it's about the opportunities that can come from those monies. And I think it's now we're getting out of the time where we're surviving and we're getting into the next generation of thriving. And I look forward to us moving forward and being the change here in Alberta, here in southern Alberta. And then again, I strongly believe that the way southern Alberta goes is the way Alberta goes, and the way Alberta goes, a lot of ways, that's the way Canada goes. So we are the heart of the change agent right here at Siksika. So it makes me proud when I see our elders that have seen so much for the last, my great aunt Christine Big Snake was down here. She's in her mid-80s. And I have photos from her from in the 30s when Prince Charles came, or Prince was it? Anyway, nonetheless, those same elders that were there then are there now. And to see this come to fruition, they never thought it was really going to come to fruition. And it's been far too long, 112 years since the wrongdoing took place. So again, it's not making it right. We'll never make it right. But it's, you know what, let's acknowledge it that a wrong happened. Let's move forward and let's make these partnerships that can create a better Siksika, a better Alberta, a better Canada. Gun.
Next question, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. John Watson from the Strathmore Times. Ouray Crowfoot has said that Chief and his council have a lot of ideas, including policing, education, and language studies. In your initial talks with Chief and Council, is Canada interested in being a significant part of developing those programs?
Yes and no. We are interested in being there as a resource to allow them to develop the programs and the path forward. But the less Ottawa has to say in how they actually get built, set up, and run, the better. It needs to be something that is driven by the Siksika Nation. It has to suit them. We are there as partners with experience, and we can make sure that the resources are there. But no matter how right the solution might be, if it comes from Ottawa, it can't be the right solution. It needs to be informed by and led by the community itself, and that's our focus. But all those priorities are ones that we spoke about and that we look forward to working with them on, so that we can move forward as a partnership.
Follow-up?
And for Chief Crowfoot, is there a timeline whatsoever on when we can expect to see some initial planning stages on when these programs might start?
ASAP. I mean, honestly, like, we've already had a lot of things into work. This is not the first thing. It's not the last thing. You know, our federal transfer, our new funding arrangement. You know, there's different tables that we're setting up as we speak. Repatriation, there's more tables that we're setting up. So, you know, we're not sitting back waiting. Our people, we hunted the buffalo. We were hunters. We went out and hunt. That's what this council is doing. We're going out and hunting. We're going out and setting those tables up. We're not waiting for Ottawa to come to us. Now, what I will say that partnerships with people like Minister Miller, they have been very productive. So, you know, even though we went out and hunt, he's helped us out along that way. So it's those mutual beneficial partnerships. Anytime you have a one-sided partnership, it's not going to last long. Canada's got to benefit. Siksika's got to benefit. Alberta's got to benefit. Everybody's got to benefit. And if you have those mutual beneficial partnerships, you're going to have growth and you're going to have success.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll take the last question. Carolyn?
Prime Minister, I'm sorry, I'm going to be asking a question in English that you've already answered in French, but your former Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, has said that your government spent a lot of time on wealth distribution, but not so much time on growing prosperity and working on competitiveness. Did he bring that up when he was in your government? And what is your government doing about those issues?
When we got elected in 2015, we made a commitment to grow the middle class and help people working hard to join it. And that's exactly what we did. First thing we did was lower taxes for the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%. We then delivered a Canada Child benefit that lifted hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty. And we continued to move forward in a way that ensured that Canadians were at the center of the growth we were creating. And Bill was a huge part of that and an important member of the team. Then when the pandemic hit, we had to shift gears. We had to be there to support small businesses, to support families, to support seniors, to support young people. And we did that not just because it was going to be the best way through the pandemic, but it was the best way of ensuring that our economy would come back as quickly and as strongly as possible. And that's exactly what it did. We have now recovered about 115% of the jobs we lost in the pandemic. The US has only recovered about 95% of the jobs they lost since February of 2020. But even as we're seeing growth pick up once again, we need to make sure we're continuing to be there to support families. Right now, that means supporting them with the cost of living, supporting them with the high prices of gas and groceries. Well, what we did on childcare, what we signed last year, right across the country, but here in Alberta, the average family with young kids is going to save about $5,000 this year in childcare fees. That significantly helps with affordability, with the cost of groceries, while at the same time not contributing towards greater inflation. These are the kinds of solutions that move forward. The Canada Child benefit, it's indexed to the cost of living. It's indexed to inflation, so it's going to be going up to make sure that families can continue to buy groceries and gas and things that they need for their kids. These are the kinds of things that we've done, and we know that through supporting Canadians, through making sure that everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed, that's how you create the best growth.
Thank you. If there's no follow-up question, that concludes today's press conference.
Merci tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup.